Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Brandy. I am the host of the Be Real Babe show, a spin-off of the Be Real Babe podcast. And today is Monday when you guys are watching this, so that means it's 1 week from our federal election, and that means it's time to keep up with Canada. Now guys, as I had mentioned, we're leading up to the biggest probably election of our lives if you're a millennial. I know it's really important to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, and I've been doing my best to try and talk about certain topics that are important, but we are quickly running out of time, and the next time I have the next episode up, it's going to be election day, so I'm not going to be able to say much more than I'm going to be able to say because I think most people are locked in. However, we are going to go over one very important topic to me that I wanted to share with all 3 different platforms and what I found and where they stand on the opioid crisis, because this is something I've been calling out on the podcast for a very long time, something that hits very close to home and something that I think needs to be discussed and worked on way more. So if you are interested in listening to all 3 parties and where they stand on the opioid crisis and how they choose to support them, and then after find out how well the newest attack on this crisis has worked out or not worked out here in BC, and how we're rolling some things back. So if you're into listening to that, stick around and we'll jump right in. Okay, babes, as mentioned, well, first and foremost, I just want to address the elephant in the room of I have to wear my glasses. My eyes are so dry, I just could not think of actually putting on my contacts this morning, so I apologize for the glare. I know when I watch YouTube content creators, it also drives me nuts, so please just bear with me. I promise I won't do it often, but today was just one of those days. Spring is happening and springing here in Canada, and my eyes are super fucking dry. So yeah, the thought of putting a contact on my dry eyeball made me want to cry, so apologies. So do not mind me and the glare. I'm going to try and look down and look up, like over my glasses, and see if that helps. So if you see me here, and I'm trying different stuff with my cameras, guys, so don't mind the next couple episodes. I'm just trying different angles and different sides of it just to see what I prefer. And of course, let me know in the comments. Okay, so anyways, as mentioned, we have our election. It'll be 1 week from today that this airs, you guys. There's lots of information that you can find where to go and do this. Make sure you're registered. As mentioned before and in the past and several times, try and bring a pen. Do not, no matter what side you're on, guys, I truly believe in democracy. So I want everybody from all sides to make sure they're informed and they get their vote in. So make sure that you are using a pen, just because you never know, right? Like, I think watching the American election, we can say that both sides have now said that the election was rigged and no one wanted to believe the results. And I know that's been said here. I know we feel like that happened this year in BC. And hey guys, potentially, you never know, that something like that could look like it to both sides come the end of this election cycle. So to feel confident, make sure you bring a pen. Lineups are probably going to be long, so make sure, you know, you're bringing comfortable shoes to stand in, clothes if you have to stand outside, making sure you bring your government ID, and if you have your card, make sure to bring it. If not, just bring like a government bill or anything with your name and address on it, and I imagine that they will support you there. But good luck on voting day if I don't talk to you from before then. Do make sure you guys to go and use your democratic right. There's countries across the world that do not get this right, and we have people that have lost their lives to make sure that we get to do this. And although maybe we're not happy with either side of the government and we hate the way the systems are, unfortunately, we can't just ignore them, because ignoring them and pretending it doesn't work and we don't like it is not helping everyday Canadians right now, is it? Right? And I think we've all understood that. So make sure you go out and vote on the 28th. I'm very lucky. I'm going to be taking the day off, not for that reason. My spouse is home and I want to take a long weekend to see him for a little bit more because it's been a long winter and we wanted an extra couple days off. So I'll be going in on the day, but there is advanced voting. You just have to look it up. It's super easy, guys. The ease of it should not, when people are bitching and complaining on lines, like, it's actually quite easy. And again, you're just spending maybe a couple of hours to have a voice within your future, or feel like you have a choice, right? And you get to put your vote in, and then you know, I feel then you're free to discuss. If you don't vote, then I think it's kind of like unfair to bitch about it. But anyways, I don't want to get into that because I know a lot of people are on the fence. Either way, go out and vote, whatever you're going to vote for. So let's talk about the opioid crisis. On the podcast, myself and Haley are going to jumping into the podcast a little bit deeper on the fentanyl crisis here in Canada, opioid crisis, all of that kind of stuff. A little bit more about safe supply and harm reduction that we know that we're having here in BC, led by the NDP. And I thought, what a good opportunity now that all platforms are out and we're right up to the finish line here. What is each individual talking about? Because again, I'm looking up what's important to me and what I want to see tackled in our country. And I think it's important you do. So, this is a big, big topic for me, something that I, have come very close to getting to in my own personal life. So I really want to make sure that the support and all that is out there for individuals that are struggling with drug addiction. And so I think this is very important policies and what I'm looking into. So, okay, let's start with the Liberal Party, since they're currently, and have been in the last 10 years, the last decade here, been in charge of the country. And I just want everyone to take a minute. We're 2025. I know it's hard. Dial back to 2015. Opioids have always been a problem here, right? But I think that's when things really started to kick off, was around 2015, 2016, at least to the point where they started collecting more and more data and getting on the streets to figure out what was going on. There's really an uptick if you look at all the charts out there. Around 2015, it really escalates. And then the pandemic just hypercharged it even more. And it really hasn't come down since pre-pandemic numbers, if you look back. So just keep that in mind. But what do the Liberals say that they're going to do? What do they say that they're going to do for the opioid crisis? So under Canada Strong, under Protect, you scroll down a little bit. We see here that it says, provide urgent and immediate support to address the overdose crisis by adding $500 million to the Emergency Treatment Fund to support municipalities, Indigenous people, and community healthcare organizations to confront the toxic drug overdose crisis and connect more people to treatment and services faster. And then through the rest of this, I've kind of gone through, and I mean, although there's lots of talk about healthcare, there's no more talk that I could see as I was scrolling through this, as you guys can see here, that is talking about the opioid crisis. So that to me is, so I mean, keep doing what you're doing and throwing money at it. That was under the mental health care. So obviously it's saying establishing more permanent mental youth health fund, which I'm sure would help. Invest in deeply affordable housing, supporting housing and shelters, recognizing the link between housing and mental health, which, we can all agree that mental health crisis it definitely is there, and a big contribution to the opioid crisis and the drug crisis that we're having here in Canada. But I'm not gonna lie, although the website was really good, that was just disappointing, because it is an epidemic here in Canada. This is, to me, far worse than the pandemic ever was, has taken far more lives, and that's just a little blurb. But again, that's what's important to me. Maybe it's not as important to you. And I'm not saying it is or not. I'm just saying, like, maybe you're not affected by it, or you've never been addicted to something, so you're not really sure the struggles, and maybe don't have the empathy for it because maybe you never went through it, and maybe you've only seen the bad side. And I've kind of been in the middle of both. I've been on the brink of becoming one of those people. I was heavily addicted to Tylenol 3. I was a person that I definitely, absolutely do not like my worst version when I was addicted. And so I can only understand, as those drugs intensified and not having the support system around me that I did, I can completely understand where these individuals are. And to me, being thrown money and given like half-assed safe supply and harm reduction, to me personally, wouldn't have helped me. It would have just solidified my addiction, right? But that's just me. So I think all forms should be on the table. And at the end of this episode, we'll go over what the actual seeming results are, some call outs of BC here and their decriminalization and safe supply and harm reduction. And I think we can all get on board with safe supply, harm reduction to a degree, but I think we need to see more treatment and mental health support, and supporting treatment versus supporting alternative type drugs, because I've talked about this before, and you guys should watch Dying in Canada by Aaron Gunn. Pharmacists are coming out saying that basically with these drugs, people are getting them, they're going to the street. Not all, but a lot of them are going to the street and selling them, because people that maybe wouldn't want to take the street drugs because they're unsafe will take these safe supply drugs because they're safer than the ones that they would get on the street, thus breeding a little bit more. So they're selling it, redistributing it, and then buying the drugs that they want. Not everybody, but this is what pharmacists in Vancouver had said. Go watch the documentary. So things are alarming, right? The decriminalization, we'll go over it, especially in the next episode with Haley. I think that's going to be airing May 2nd. We're going to be diving deeper into the numbers, and has the numbers, obviously arrests decreased, but it doesn't look like any overdoses or hospitalizations have been minimized by doing that, right? So again, everyone's going to have a different opinion. This is just mine based on being a recovered prescription pill addict that's on the brink of could have and understand that. For me personally, that's not the treatment that I needed to get clean and stay away from pharmaceuticals. I barely take Advil now. Yes, huge stoner, but I don't touch any sort of pharmaceuticals unless it is for a specific thing, not for pain and to escape. So I fucking understand, but for me, that wouldn't be it. So let's now go to this conservative platform and see what Pierre has to say. So Poilievre promises compassion intervention to help people struggling with severe addiction. Polyev will let judges sentence offenders to mandated treatment for severe addiction cases requiring recovery-oriented rehabilitation in prison. Today, conservative leader Pierre Poilievre announced that a new conservative government will give judges the power to mandate treatment for people struggling with severe addiction. This compassionate change will save lives and help escape the destructive cycle of addiction. This isn't about punishment, it's about saving lives, Poilievre said. Addiction robs the most vulnerable Canadians' ability to choose recovery. We will help them get control back of their lives with care, compassion, and a commitment to bring them home drug-free. To do this, a new conservative government will allow judges to sentence offenders to mandatory treatment for addiction, giving courts the power to order treatment as an alternative to prison when people are too sick to choose it themselves, or the offender's only crimes involve small quantities of drugs for their own use and other non-violent infractions where provincial legislation allows. Require recovery-oriented rehabilitations in prison, ensuring that the most serious offenders struggling with addiction participate in evidence-based therapeutic living programs in prison where such treatment is available. End the failed Liberal so-called safe supply experiment that has floored streets with taxpayer-funded addictive opioids, keeping people hooked instead of helping them heal. Impose life sentences on fentanyl traffickers and criminal organizations profiting off the opioid crisis. During the lost liberal decade, radical liberals' experiments with free drugs have failed the most vulnerable people in our society. The Liberals decriminalized dangerous drugs, gave out taxpayer-funded hard drugs, and abandoning people in active addiction to die on the streets. The result, more than 50,000 Canadians have died from opioid overdose, representing a 200% increase since 2016. More Canadians have now died of drug overdose than anyone who died fighting for Canada in the Second World War. Under Poilievre's plan, the suffering will be given a real path off the streets with safe housing, medical detox, evidence-based medication, and structured rehabilitation that helps them build their lives. Possession of illegal drugs would remain a crime, but we would allow judges to order a recovery-focused alternative to prison for those with simple possession offenses, giving them a chance to turn their lives around. For too long, the government had left people suffer, calling it compassion, to feed their addiction while doing nothing to get them off the street and into treatment. That's not kindness, that's cruelty. It's time to stop the suffering and let people take control back of their lives. So, and I know that's going to trigger a lot of people because I know a lot of people really believe in the safe supply and the harm reduction. And to be honest, like I said, there's a lot of evidence supporting otherwise. And I'm really sorry. I know I wish it was this be all end all and that it would just wipe it off the streets. But like I said, I'm going to go more into the numbers into the podcast. We're going to do a deeper dive with Haley. So if you want to watch that, Apple, Spotify, or Rumble on May 2nd, we're going to dive in deeper to the fentanyl crisis here in Canada and the opioid crisis just in general. And I've talked about this before several times on the podcast. Unfortunately, living in BC and especially in Kelowna, I have not seen an improvement. And I personally do not believe throwing money and or drugs, whether they're safe or not, at someone is going to be beneficial for everybody. So, and it is said if you go deeper into it that he's not going to shut down everything. It's just that he's going to require those places to hold a certain standard and to be able to have medical staff there as well to help offer treatment versus just continually to safely inject or inhale at those sites to really set them up for recovery. Now, again, as someone who's a recovered pill addict, I definitely appreciate this approach. However, I know that I have ignorance and when it comes to heavier drugs, but at the same time, when you hear those people speak, a lot of the times I don't think that they want to continue that. I don't think anybody on earth wants to continue that. So if there's more offerings, absolutely, please have them. And I think the biggest, most number one thing that I care about the most is him wanting to take down the fentanyl kingpins and stop it from coming into our borders more often than not. If it's not here as much, it's probably not going to be as available. But if they keep pouring in and we're not paying attention to policies that allow these criminals to go back onto the streets, the drugs will continue to happen. Of course, they're always going to happen. Unfortunately, I don't think that that's ever going to go away. But I do think we need to look at the core reasonings, mental health. How are we going to support people's mental health and getting them into treatment versus, and again, some reoffenders, again, I've talked about this before. Criminals are people that are doing bad things, especially even to themselves sometimes, if they're continually hurting themselves, I think we need to support them. And if we can put them in a place where they can focus and get clean, I think that's amazing. And I think that's the right way. Again, is there going to be some clap back to some of this and some things that may seem a little harsh? Yes. And I'll call those out too when we see them come to fruition. But again, the last 10 years, you guys have not been critical about how the Liberals have been handling it. So don't worry, we will once. And if Conservatives get in, I know this is something that affects a lot of people and they're very interested, but the approach that we've had is not working. Now, unfortunately, I'd say I'm going to share really quickly of the NDP, but there's nothing on their platform about it. So the only thing that I could find on their platform was from February 3rd, 2022. But I try to go through the news here, try to go through what he's talking about. And unfortunately, I mean, he is talking about a lot of cuts and things that he wants to do, universal health care, privatization. But I'm not seeing anything. Because then so let's look at their site. Do we see anywhere? I think there was a plan. Okay, our plans. Workers, stand with auto workers, a tax cut, fight for renters, doctors for everyone. I think even went in doctors for everyone, and there wasn't anything specifically calling out the opioid crisis. Wanting to have a bunch of doctors. Amazing. Love that. But so you guys have a week, you go have a look. Like I said, it does look like they called it out back in 2022. But there's really not much there. There's really not much there for that, which is crazy because I thought that the NDP were definitely more people leaning, but I guess not. My mistake. So if any of you guys find that, please let me know. But you guys see we're the Liberals and Conservatives. Now, to wrap it up, we're going to talk about the NDP here in BC and how that's looking. Again, I'm going to dive deeper on May 2nd. But let's have a little look here when it comes to the way that NDP here provincially has handled decriminalization, safe supply, harm reduction, and let's see if that's working out. So Rob Shaw, NDP, drug policy reversal proves politicians never say sorry. New Democrats perfect the art of taking action by cleaning up their own messes. If you're ever in trouble for royally screwing up at work, try this neat trick. Don't admit you did anything wrong. Just look your boss straight in the eye and tell them you're taking bold action to strengthen your role while providing yourself more tools to crack down on bad actors in your workplace. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to get you fired. Turns out that special mixture of impertinental gal and stubborn blamelessness doesn't work so well in the real world. Politicians, though, operate in a different kind of world. One where the BC government could roll back its safe supply program this week after downplaying 2 years of concerns that its lack for safeguards was fueling criminal drug traffickers and still get away with saying this. The province is taking action to prevent the diversion of prescribed opioids and hold bad actors accountable for putting people and communities at risk. Who exactly is the NDP taking action against, you might ask? Itself. It was a new Democratic administration that crafted the unwitnessed safe supply policy during COVID-19, downplayed any suggestion diversion of government drugs was happening, ridiculed critics as fearmongers, stifled police, gaslit the public, shamed anyone who stepped forward with contrary information, and only finally after a leaked internal document this month confirmed the program was fueling organized crime, reluctantly made the change, all while still criticizing the anonymous whistleblower who leaked the report that finally confirmed the truth. Turns out they know. They know it's not helping. So, can we try something else? Taking action indeed. We have taken action consistently, Health Minister Josie Osborne told reporters, and we will continue to monitor and learn and adapt to that as we need to. It is the second major reversal of progressive drug policy in the last 10 months after the government functionally canceled its decriminalization experiment in April. There, too, New Democrats followed a similar script of deny and downplay until street disorder reached such a boil that the government issued this press release. BC is taking action to make illicit drug use illegal in all public spaces, including inside hospitals, on transit, and in parks, it read. It's part of several new measures introduced by the province focused on providing police with more tools to address public safety while offering support and access to treatment for people living with addiction. But who made illicit drug use in public spaces legal in the first place? And who took away those police tools? The exact same government 12 months prior. If anyone other than politicians tried this nonsensical wordplay, they'd be laughed out of the room. A plumber can't botch a sink installation, flood an entire house, and return later to say they are taking action to strengthen the piping system as a part of new measures to improve sink services for homeowners. A roofer can't walk away with the homeowner's ladder and then return it after complaints by saying they are taking action to provide more tools to the homeowner. No real people who make real mistakes have to admit it. They say it out loud and then they apologize and make it right. Only politicians think they can skip this step. They surround by strategists who tell them apologizing looks weak and wordsmiths who tell them they can write away their mistakes. The result is steady diminishing trust in politics, which is why despite 2 major reversals in under a year on drug policy, the government will be hard-pressed to get out from under the criticism of how it handled both decriminalization and safe supply. Hear, hear. Completely agree. That was such a well-written article. But yeah, you guys, I wanted to just do a quick one. Like I said, it's coming to the end here, so I know you're probably locked into whatever you're going to be locked into. But as I promised, I was going to go through things that are important to me and things that I heard up until then. So next episode, probably just gonna talk about the state of the place, see what we're currently like. Maybe I'll record on Sunday, the day before election, and then the one after that will obviously be about the results, hopefully, and hopefully it won't be about our country crumbling on either side, because remember, guys, we are still empowered, we are still individuals, we are still Canadians, and it is so important that we get involved and we talk things out, we work together, even if we're on opposite sides. I think it's super important that we work together and make sure that we're coming at this at the best compassionate, while having boundaries, conversations, and making sure that we're fully hearing each other. Also knowing that no party or no politician is going to be able to fix everything. It really starts at home and within your four walls, and it's really important that we self-evaluate. And it's also important to really understand what you stand for. What are your morals? What do you care about? What's important to you? Make sure you get outside of social media, get outside of the news, sit in your home, talk to your family inside your home, and discuss what's most important. And then looking at the policies, let's try and pick what's best for us and our family, and when we're voting on April 28th. And then when the results come on either side, I really hope that we can just keep coming together, you guys, because guess what? We're in that uncomfortable of everyone talking things and disagreeing, and we're getting used to it, and we're learning, and we're coming together more and more, and we're having these conversations and opening our eyes to new experiences and new thoughts. And I think that's beautiful. And I really just hope that we can divulge from becoming angry, and, whatever the results are, keep working, keep getting involved, ask the questions, hold people accountable. In the government, either side, if someone's saying one thing and they're doing something that they said that the opposite of what they said they were going to do, let's hold them accountable. I am not for one to just be like, oh, whatever, it is what it is. Like, no, if our party wins or your party wins, it's important to make sure that they're telling the honest truth the best that they can. And also, I think it's really important all of us learn how the Canadian government works, how bills work, how things go through, how our setup is, because I think we need a reform altogether. I think the West is completely, absolutely exhausted from just following whatever the East wants. And I really would hate to see this country break apart or Alberta become the 51st state. I'd really love it if we could just come together and not be so politically charged, and just remember that we're all human, which, being on TikTok is extremely hard when some people are super mean just because you have a different opinion. But anyways, guys, happy voting. I obviously am going to be able to say that the day that you're voting, but make sure you go and early vote, have all the things that you need to, make sure that you're having open and honest discord, and make sure to not vandalize anybody else's things. Let's be open democracy, and just because someone has a different opinion doesn't mean we need to fight them, vandalize their shit, or get violent or mean. I think we can all be adults and have adult conversations. But that is it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Until next time, bye.